In the heart of a shifting geopolitical landscape, the announcement of a landmark deal between Pakistan and Saudi Arabia has captured worldwide attention. For decades, the two countries have shared a bond rooted in history, faith, and mutual dependence, but this agreement feels different, bigger, bolder, and far more consequential than past promises. The deal, revealed after weeks of speculation, includes massive Saudi investment in Pakistan's energy and infrastructure sectors, promises of cooperation in defense, and an understanding of joint efforts in trade and technology. At first glance, it may look like yet another chapter in the story of a rich Gulf state supporting a struggling South Asian partner. But this time, the stakes are higher, the timing more delicate, and the ripple effects potentially global. For Pakistan, this deal comes as a lifeline. The country has been grappling with economic instability, mounting debt, and an energy crisis that has left millions frustrated. Saudi Arabia's pledge of billions in investment is more than a financial boost, it is an opportunity for Pakistan to stabilize its economy, rebuild investor confidence, and reposition itself as a serious player in South Asian geopolitics. The symbolism matters, too. By standing shoulder to shoulder with Saudi Arabia, Islamabad signals to the world that it is not isolated, but rather part of a powerful regional network. For Saudi Arabia, the deal fits neatly into the framework of Vision 2030, Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman's ambitious plan to diversify the kingdom's economy and strengthen its role as a global power broker. Riyadh is not simply providing aid to Pakistan, it is strategically planting seeds of long-term partnership. By investing in Pakistan's energy infrastructure and security apparatus, Saudi Arabia gains a trusted ally in South Asia, a potential bridge to China, and a stronger hand in regional affairs that stretch from the Gulf to the Indian Ocean. The announcement was staged with careful attention. High-level officials from both countries presented the agreement not as a simple transaction, but as a partnership of the future. Media outlets highlighted handshakes, symbolic gestures, and grand statements about shared visions of prosperity and stability. It was a moment designed to show strength, not only to domestic audiences, but also to the watching world. For Pakistan, the deal with Saudi Arabia is not just another agreement, it is a moment of survival, strategy, and hope. In recent years, the country has faced some of its harshest economic and political challenges. Inflation has soared, foreign reserves have plummeted, and the energy crisis has left factories idle and homes in the dark. For millions of ordinary Pakistanis, daily life has been marked by uncertainty, with questions about how long the state can withstand financial pressure. Against this backdrop, the Saudi partnership emerges as a lifeline, but also as an opportunity to reposition Pakistan on the global map. At the core of Islamabad's interest lies economic stabilization. Saudi Arabia's promised billions in investments, particularly in energy, oil refineries, and infrastructure, provide breathing space to a struggling economy. Energy security is one of Pakistan's greatest vulnerabilities. Frequent blackouts and dependence on costly imports have crippled growth. With Saudi Arabia's support in energy projects, from oil supply agreements to potential renewable energy ventures, Pakistan sees a chance to not only solve its immediate needs but also to lay the foundation for long-term independence. Beyond economics, there is the security dimension. Pakistan has long relied on Saudi Arabia for financial backing, while Saudi Arabia has leaned on Pakistan's military expertise. This deal strengthens that dynamic. Joint defense cooperation, intelligence sharing, and potential arms development are all on the table. For Pakistan, which faces threats from terrorism, border conflicts, and an unpredictable India, having Saudi Arabia as a committed security partner adds a layer of strategic confidence. It signals to adversaries that Pakistan is not standing alone. Then comes the diplomatic advantage. By aligning closely with Riyadh, Islamabad gains credibility in the wider Muslim world. Saudi Arabia's influence over the Organization of Islamic Cooperation (OIC) gives Pakistan a stronger platform to raise issues like Kashmir on the global stage. At a time when Pakistan struggles to counter India's growing influence with the US and in global forums, support from a heavyweight like Saudi Arabia becomes invaluable. Another key factor is geopolitical balancing. Pakistan has long tried to maintain ties with both China and the United States, a delicate balancing act in an era of increasing US-China rivalry. By deepening relations with Saudi Arabia, Pakistan positions itself as a bridge between multiple powers. With China heavily invested in Pakistan through the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor (CPEC) and Saudi Arabia now entering the scene, Islamabad can diversify its sources of support while subtly signaling to Washington that it has other options. Finally, the deal offers political legitimacy at home. Pakistan's leadership, often criticized for economic mismanagement, can present the agreement as a victory. It reassures the people that relief is coming and portrays the government as capable of forging powerful alliances. In a politically turbulent environment, where public trust is fragile, such a narrative can be a powerful tool for survival. For Saudi Arabia, the deal with Pakistan is not an act of charity, nor a simple extension of goodwill, it is part of a carefully calculated strategy. Under the leadership of Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman MBS, the kingdom has embarked on a transformative plan known as Vision 2030. This ambitious blueprint seeks to diversify the Saudi economy away from its historic dependence on oil revenues, modernize its society, and elevate its role as a global power broker. Within this broader vision, Pakistan becomes not just a partner, but a strategic asset. The first and most obvious motivation is economic diversification. Saudi Arabia's massive oil reserves remain a backbone of its wealth, but global trends are shifting. With the rise of renewable energy, climate change policies, and fluctuating oil markets, Riyadh knows it must prepare for a post-oil future. By investing in Pakistan's energy and infrastructure sectors, Saudi Arabia secures not only profitable ventures but also access to a growing consumer market of over 240 million people. Pakistan, with its youthful population and geographic location, offers opportunities for both exports and long-term partnerships in industries beyond oil. The second motivation lies in strategic geography. Pakistan sits at the crossroads of South Asia, Central Asia, and the Middle East, with access to the Arabian Sea. This makes it a natural bridge to China's Belt and Road Initiative (BRI) and the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor (CPEC). For Saudi Arabia, positioning itself within this network provides leverage not only with Beijing but also in global trade routes. Investments in ports, refineries, and logistics hubs in Pakistan are part of a long-term strategy to expand Riyadh's reach across Asia. Security considerations also play a central role. Pakistan's military is one of the most capable in the Muslim world, with decades of experience and nuclear capability. Over the years, Pakistani troops have trained Saudi forces, guarded the kingdom, and collaborated in intelligence operations. By deepening this defense relationship, Saudi Arabia strengthens its own national security while counterbalancing rivals like Iran. The deal reinforces a partnership where Pakistan's military expertise complements Saudi financial strength, a relationship of mutual dependence. Beyond economics and security, there is a diplomatic dimension. Riyadh wants to reposition itself as a leader not just in the Gulf, but across the wider Muslim world. Aligning with Pakistan, home to one of the world's largest Muslim populations, gives Saudi Arabia additional weight in organizations like the OIC and in shaping collective responses to global issues. It enhances Riyadh's legitimacy as the voice of the Muslim Ummah, while also providing it with a strong ally to amplify its positions on international platforms. But perhaps the most telling motivation is independence in global politics. While the United States remains a close partner, Saudi Arabia has increasingly sought to demonstrate that it is not tied exclusively to Washington's agenda. Building robust ties with Pakistan, along with outreach to China and even cautious diplomacy with Iran, signals Riyadh's determination to shape its own destiny. The Pakistan deal is one more step in that direction, proof that Saudi Arabia will pursue what serves its national interest, even if it complicates old alliances. When Pakistan and Saudi Arabia announced their landmark deal, the news did not go unnoticed in Washington. For decades, the United States has been the central power player in the Middle East, deeply entwined with Riyadh through oil, defense, and security guarantees. At the same time, U.S.-Pakistan relations have swung between cooperation and mistrust, defined by Cold War alliances, the war in Afghanistan, and more recently, tensions over counterterrorism and China's rising influence. Against this backdrop, the growing closeness between Pakistan and Saudi Arabia has forced Washington to calculate its response carefully. The initial reaction from U.S. officials was measured, even cautious. Public statements congratulated both countries, framing the deal as a step toward regional stability and economic growth. Yet beneath the diplomatic pleasantries, there were unspoken concerns. Washington knows that Saudi Arabia is trying to diversify its partnerships and reduce its reliance on the U.S., and Pakistan is increasingly leaning on China for development projects through the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor (CPEC). The U.S. fears that this triangular alignment, Saudi financial muscle, Pakistani strategic depth, and Chinese infrastructure, could evolve into a bloc that sidelines American influence. One of Washington's biggest worries is the security dimension. U.S. policymakers are sensitive to the idea of Saudi Arabia and Pakistan deepening military cooperation. Pakistan's military strength, including its nuclear capabilities, has always made Washington uneasy. A closer defense partnership between Islamabad and Riyadh could potentially lead to new military arrangements, arms transfers, or joint projects outside of U.S. oversight. For a region already fraught with tensions, from Iran to Yemen to the broader Gulf, the U.S. sees this as a potential destabilizing factor. At the same time, Washington has to tread carefully. Saudi Arabia remains a vital partner, especially when it comes to stabilizing global oil markets. The U.S. cannot afford a direct confrontation with Riyadh without risking economic blowback at home. Instead, Washington's response has taken the form of subtle messaging, reassurances of continued friendship, quiet reminders of past cooperation, and veiled warnings about the risks of moving too far away from traditional alliances. In practice, this means dual-track diplomacy. On one hand, U.S. diplomats emphasize the benefits of trilateral cooperation, suggesting that Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, and the U.S. can all work together on regional stability. On the other hand, Washington uses its influence to remind Islamabad of its vulnerabilities, such as debt restructuring and trade access, signaling that Pakistan should not place all its bets on Riyadh and Beijing. Perhaps the most significant message is directed indirectly to Israel. The U.S. wants Tel Aviv to see this deal as part of a shifting regional order. With Saudi Arabia showing greater independence and aligning with partners like Pakistan, Washington is signaling to Israel that its own regional behavior must be recalibrated. In other words, America is warning, the old certainties are fading, and Israel must adapt if it wants continued U.S. backing. For Israel, the Pakistan-Saudi Arabia deal is not just a distant diplomatic headline, it is a development with potentially serious consequences. Israel has long relied on a network of quiet understandings and open partnerships with the United States and, increasingly, with Arab states. The Abraham Accords symbolized that progress, drawing Gulf countries like the UAE and Bahrain into normalization agreements with Israel. Hopes were high that Saudi Arabia, as the most influential Arab state, would eventually follow suit. But the deal with Pakistan complicates this trajectory. From Israel's perspective, Saudi Arabia drawing closer to Pakistan creates new uncertainties. Pakistan does not recognize Israel, has been vocal about the Palestinian cause, and has historically positioned itself as a defender of Muslim interests worldwide. If Riyadh is strengthening ties with Islamabad, it suggests that Saudi Arabia still feels the need to balance its relationships carefully, keeping the Palestinian issue alive and avoiding steps that could alienate the wider Muslim world. For Israel, that is a setback to normalization hopes. Beyond symbolism, there are security concerns. Israel is acutely aware of Pakistan's nuclear capabilities. While there is no evidence that Saudi Arabia seeks access to Pakistan's nuclear arsenal, the deepening of defense ties between the two countries raises red flags. Israel has long viewed the idea of nuclear proliferation in the Middle East as an existential threat. The thought that Saudi Arabia could one day leverage Pakistani expertise, or, in a worst-case scenario, Pakistani nuclear technology, keeps Israeli strategists on edge. The Pakistan-Saudi Arabia deal, and the reactions it sparked, point toward a larger truth: the geopolitical balance of power is shifting. Where once the United States and its closest allies dictated the terms of Middle Eastern politics, today multiple players, China, Russia, regional powers, and now Pakistan, are shaping outcomes. The future of this dynamic is uncertain, but several key themes emerge. First is the idea of multipolarity. The Middle East and South Asia are no longer bound by a single dominant power. Saudi Arabia has shown it can chart its own path, engaging with Pakistan, China, and even rivals like Iran, while still maintaining ties with Washington. Pakistan, for its part, is proving that it can be more than a client state. It can leverage its geography, population, and military strength to secure meaningful partnerships. Together, these shifts suggest a world where power is shared among many, not concentrated in one. Second is the fragility of alliances. While the Pakistan-Saudi deal looks strong today, both sides must manage expectations. Saudi Arabia will expect loyalty from Pakistan in regional disputes, perhaps even in its cautious diplomacy with Iran. Pakistan, meanwhile, will hope Riyadh delivers on its financial promises without imposing conditions that compromise Islamabad's independence. Any imbalance could strain the relationship. Third, the role of the United States and Israel remains pivotal. Washington is unlikely to sit back quietly while its influence erodes. The U.S. will use economic tools, diplomatic pressure, and military ties to ensure it remains central to Saudi strategy. For Israel, the deal is both a warning and an opportunity. If handled wisely, Israel could adapt to the new reality by pursuing more inclusive regional diplomacy. If not, it risks being sidelined as other players build new coalitions. Fourth, there is the China factor. Beijing has already invested heavily in Pakistan and has growing ties with Riyadh. The Pakistan-Saudi partnership could easily overlap with Chinese interests, creating a triangle of cooperation that sidelines U.S. influence. If that happens, the balance of power in the Middle East could tilt further eastward. Finally, the most important question remains: what does this mean for ordinary people? For Pakistanis, the hope is economic relief, job creation, and energy security. For Saudis, it is progress toward a modern, diversified economy. For Americans and Israelis, it is about preserving influence and security. And for the broader region, it is about whether such deals lead to stability or spark new rivalries.